13 million viewers, winning an International Emmy, the most UK television most watched new drama. What would you say, or do you believe, has resonated so much with the audience? What was that magic?
I mean, I do think that we just come through a huge period of claustrophobia ourselves, and we were finding connection and escape. I think Suranne talked about this in another interview through the television at that time, and I think that precisely hit home. These people who were sort of forced to be together and doing their duty, and then something going wrong. I think there was a big connection with that story. I think the characters and the relationships that were created, both in terms of the military situation, the suspects, but also our two leads, who obviously are the figures who have come back for a series 2. Really, their relationship, which was very difficult and at long distance, I think hit home as well. So I think it was sometimes you're very lucky and everything comes together very well, and then you try and repeat it and you see how it goes. I don't know what you think, Tom.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all that. I think there are also questions in both seasons about Britain's place in the world and how we manage our sense of self and our loyalties. And I think in season 1, we looked at a story that may have felt like an artifact of a frozen conflict that has not in fact gone away, and that charts half a century of trying to figure out who we are in the world, what our role may be. And then in this season, we got to look forward. So we got to ask sort of what next, both about Suranne and Rose's characters, but also try to anticipate the next kind of testing ground for our sense of who we are. And oddly, when we started developing this, like immediately after the last show came out, the thing that we alighted on was like, we think drones maybe become important. Cheap drones, lighter drones on the field of warfare, and it's been odd seeing both the Russia-Ukraine conflict really foreground that, and also about 6 months ago, the RAF unveiling its drone that now fires anti-tank missiles. So hopefully this looks to the near future, but asks a related set of questions.
So Suranne and Rose, I'm glad to say you made it out of the woods. Look a little bit bruised up there, so I'm sure we've got some more adventures to come. But when the script lands and you see what's happening in second series, what was it that you thought, oh my God, gotta do this again?
I didn't know what it would be after the first one, because the first one was so wild and brilliant. But I guess the characters, the fact that our relationship is in the middle of such a big kind of thriller. The heart of it is the two of us, and I was really interested to see where we went, and the fact that one of us was having a baby kind of helped, and it sits so well in this huge show that I mean, like the scope of this show is so big, this one compared to the last one, and I thought the last one was big, and that we managed to sit at the heart of it. I wanted to go back and
explore them again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think I was very kind of I liked the idea that being pregnant meant that Kirsten had to stay home and kind of be in Scotland, and then as a result that tore us apart again in a very natural, organic way, because there was no way that I'd be following you out to Woodyard. So I felt that certainly coming from that premise, it helped that there was a reason as to why their relationship was going to be torn again.
And there are over, I think, is it 9 new cast members, including you two fabulous in the centre there. How does it feel joining a cast like this and an adventure like this? What's it been like?
It was great. I mean, the first season I thought was fantastic and brilliantly written, directed, acted, really brilliant. And I loved the story. That when I read the script, I thought it was very relevant. It's become even more relevant now, but it's I mean, I think that the character that they asked me to play is an intriguing character for me. I haven't quite played anyone like him before, and the writing I think was so good that it kind of led you to see the world through his eyes, and I think that's what great writing does. It doesn't judge the characters; it allows you to inhabit that world that the character occupies. The character occupies it and see things from his perspective. I don't know how you felt about writing it, but was great dialogue to play for an actor, but it was a great experience on set. We laughed quite a lot.
Jolly. It was jolly.
It was jolly.
We
It's
laughed
jolly.
a
Given the
lot.
subject, it was jolly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Imagine you need a laugh at some of the
and
moments.
it was, you know, I'm from Scotland, and it was bloody cold when we were filming. So thank God we had such a good atmosphere on set. I love being around actors. You know, I'm an actor. I started in theatre. I just love being around actors. And when you get on and it's just so great. And it was an atmosphere that created by, you know, Andy Deminy, who directed the first, was brilliant and set a great kind of atmosphere on set. And I just, you know, I love working in Scotland. Scotland's I'm from there, and I just think it's the greatest country on the planet. Apologies to England.
I don't think anyone's going to argue
I
with
love
you.
England as well. I do love England. I live here. And my kids are English, kind of half English. But I think Scotland's just so extraordinary with such great stories. Anyway, so I love being there, and I had a great time. I loved it.
Same.
Wonderful cast, Rose and Romilly, and of course Suranne, and it was great. I loved it.
Robin, from the beginning, it seems like a weight of expectation and responsibilities lands on your shoulders straight off. Without spilling the beans, because I know you all have to try very hard not to keep us all engaged, but can you give us a sense of how your character develops and how that fits into what the exciting things of what to come?
Yeah, well, I am, as you say, she's stepping up into the role. And it's a considerable responsibility, and obviously there's been this terrible tragedy which has to be managed on top of that. And I think Eliza sort of grows into the role but has a slightly uncomfortable relationship with her power. I think sometimes overexerts her power in an effort to kind of step up into the role, but is also extremely good at her job as well. And I think Suranne and I had a lot of fun playing these two extremely competent, extremely intelligent women, but both used to running things. So those scenes were really good fun to play.
That leads me very neatly, and then it's no coincidence that into my next question or comment, because biasly, I love anything with a kick-ass woman in it, and there's quite a few in this one.
Yeah.
But it doesn't. It feels very natural and very. What's the word? I'm losing track of the words I'm looking for. But it doesn't feel like you're ticking boxes. It feels very genuine. So I just wondered how you helped Tom and Jake develop your character. How much room was there for all of you to kind of develop the characters as you went along?
I think they were very much there on the page, very much. But when you're given that material, it's what I found about the development of our relationship is these are two women that have decided to have a family together. They already have a daughter, a child on the way, but they're also very defined by their work, so by their careers. So they're going to start butting heads when one is trying to look after the other and the other one wants to do everything. And, you know, and I think it brought an element of fun, but actually a seriousness of, oh, well, how does that change the relationship dynamic, which was really interesting for us. And it took it somewhere else. And then with myself and Romola, again, it was about finding the fun in it and who was going to be on top and who was going to listen to who. No, that's
Catholic
not,
mind.
Yeah.
I only laugh because they laugh.
Yeah. Dirty minds.
Exactly.
No, none of that. But that was interesting. Like who was going to give at what point and how we were going to help each other, which was fun.
And I think we talked about that in the story room when we were talking about Eliza's characters, that we wanted, there'd been a lot of butting heads, all the boys on the submarine. And I think we really were interested in seeing a clash of two female characters who both thought they should be in charge.
Yeah.
And that reflected also some of the things that were going on between our two protagonists. So I think when you were building Eliza, that was a big part.
It's true. And also, I mean, Suranne and Rose had a really great feel for the characters. So we did have discussions and listen, but also it's the joy of a second season is you get to watch the first season and often go, oh, so that's what that character is. You get the joy of being surprised. And that's the pleasure of working with great actors. They show you things that you hadn't seen or hadn't known, and then you get to explore that.
And they say if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I'm assuming, but it's also set in a very different context and environment. So were there things that you definitely thought, right, we must explore again, or we must have again, and things you definitely wanted to avoid and bring something fresh to?
I think the DNA of the show is not about, the submarine was the setting of the first series, but the DNA of the show from the beginning, from when George, who's developed it, came with the idea to Tom, and we've talked about it, is about that what happens when police priorities for an investigation clash with national interest and military priorities. And so we knew that that's always going to be, and I think it probably, those clashing jurisdictions and priorities and people who think they're right and what they're doing is much more important, and that's a real question that happens, is sort of the heart. So I think beyond the characters and what would happen to them, I think that we just wanted to find the right arena and a new arena with new questions that could happen. Is that small?
Yeah, and I think I hope in the first season that we weren't sort of didactic. We allowed room for people to make their cases and make them with some sincerity. And there's a similar thing running through this season, that there are characters who have very well thought through and very convincing arguments for worldviews that sometimes have almost nothing in common. And so sort of grey areas, those contested areas, which is interesting for us to prize apart.
Are you conscious of the times that we're living in, the politics? I mean, you tackle a really big subject matter and very, very subject that will resonate with us now. I mean, when it goes out on a channel that is known for being non-biased, I mean, how much are you constantly thinking, can we say this, can we get away with that? What am I trying to say? Are you given free reign? When does the
I mean, I think the
difficult
BBC have been
conversations come into
incredibly supportive. I think if we were a show that had gone out and said, we just think this one thing and we're going to persuade everyone, that may have been a different deal. But I think the further, the deeper we got into the research, the more you find the complexity of those arguments, and the harder it is in the end, even if you were minded to take a singular point of view and just bang the drum for one cause at the cost of all others. So I hope that we're fair-minded through the lens of character as we explore that. But the BBC have been great throughout.
And there are so many characters, and my character had to remember everybody's name. Like, I was literally going from, because there's so many brilliant, younger actors. I say younger, they're not that young, they're just younger than me. But, and so I was like I got to play with absolutely everyone. And on the first season, I was in the submarine. Mm-hmm. So this time I'm just like, oh wow, I think I got to meet pretty much everyone. So everyone's point of view, I did scenes with, trying to remember my lines. But so I can attest to there are lots of characters and points of view.
It's a very sort of insightful depiction of a world that is very, very close. And the language is almost, because it is so it can feel like Esperanto, like you really have to kind of listen, you really have to try and learn from it. I wondered how it was for you, it's new characters, what preparation was for you in terms of getting to terms with, the Air Force, the language, getting physically ready for the part. They've had practice.
I think you just have to say it fast and say exactly what you're talking about with confidence and conviction. I've played quite a lot of military people in my time, from privates to officers, and so you get a feel for it. And I have a curious mind, so I look at lots of documentaries, and I'm aware of Britain's position within the Middle East and why it's there, and so I have a sort of general knowledge about that. And in terms of the language and the character, you just you learn what you have to learn in order to understand what you're talking about, and really about the world that these characters occupy and that the story occupies as well. And I think Tom did a fantastic job with really authenticating that world and making the characters feel believable. So yeah, I mean, say it fast and say it like you know exactly what you're talking about.
There's the trick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've not played a character like this before, which is one of the main reasons, apart from the extraordinary script, why I really wanted to do it. And I read some really interesting books. There's been quite a few books by like female fighter pilots, like women who have become very senior in the RAF, and it's really interesting. It's obviously a very masculine world. So it's interesting to me why you'd be attracted to it, and there's obviously the extreme loyalty of the people who work in that kind of world towards each other and towards the institution, and it was all just really, really interesting. And I mean, I did try and do a bit extra running beforehand. I got my little boy to count me doing press ups. He was like, "That's 4, mummy, 4." I was in heavy training for that.
And then we went to Morocco, and the size of the tea table, became huge. Not that it was small in Scotland; it was good. By that I mean, biscuits and it grew in size.
Oh, I'm jealous.
Yes,
I
I'll send you a
that.
picture.
Massive afternoon tea. Yeah.
Now there are hints of beautiful landscape and scenes which kind of play into what Dugro is saying about how beautiful Scotland was. You go to Morocco. What were the challenges of filming in both these places? I don't imagine everything's smooth sailing ever.
No, but we had a very good Moroccan production company who we worked with. They'd done our SAS Rogue Heroes there, so they had and they were incredibly helpful. We went to Casablanca and then the air base, and obviously we were piecing together. Wujan just is a fictional country, and we wanted to piece together a sort of a place that was redolent of the Middle East, but was its own fictional world. And and Tom presented that in pieces of the script, and they were great at matching that. And they had enough experience and of what we were doing and the scale that actually things went remarkably smoothly. And we did all of the exteriors, all of the work there in 3 weeks. And some of the interiors happened in a slightly colder place with a lot of very bright lights outside. And working in Scotland's just been a joy. The crews were fantastic all through. And some of them had come back from Series 1, and they really loved the show and are really excited by the show. And that really shows, I think, the togetherness of the crew. I don't know whether you feel the same when you're working with them, but they're great, aren't they?
They were absolutely wonderful, and it was lovely to see some old faces again from Series 1. And I always felt very, very lucky when we were shooting on location in Scotland, just because the final scene then, actually, when we were in that woodland, very kind of like dense woodland area, that was beautiful, and it smelt very mossy and just, it was lovely. Yeah, lots of mosquitoes, but other than that, it was good.
And what's the magic for you all, I guess, when you will have a successful series, but doing a series as opposed to like a one-off feature? What does it allow you as creatives to play with and use as a cast, apart from bonding for much longer time? What do you find thrilling about it all?
I think when you fall in love with a character, and if it's just a one-off piece, you wish that you'd have just developed or delved more, or things that you wanted to know. And so coming back to a second series, you're like, and I'm already kind of watching that, kind of like going, oh wow, I wonder if I could do this or I could do. So you fall in love with characters more, I think, and it's just great because you get to know the next bit. Yeah.
I agree. I totally agree. No, you do. You get to know the next bit, and you get to explore, as you say. And then, particularly with our relationship, like that's a wonderful thing to be able to kind of expand and see where they go, and kind of how they confront the challenges that they are confronted with. And as a result, it's very like rewarding, and there's deep security in returning back to a character, because you feel like you know that you know the essence of what that character is, and then there's a little bit of confidence that comes with you on the first day, and you're not so scared as if you're starting from scratch.
Yeah. The magic of it, as you mentioned earlier, is that having those big pictures and themes, and then having all these intimacies and personal challenges. I wonder whether there are any personal challenges that you both face that we are to be looking forward to.
Yes, but we can't tell you.
I know they can't. We'll give that hint.
I was like,
I would say that we put everybody through the ringer.
Oh,
I think that would be, and including hopefully the audience, wouldn't you say that's right?
I would.
Yeah. I'm going to keep stum about that bit. That part of the pleasure of the piece is what happens. Of course, that's with every story, but I think with Vigil, it's definitely a massive piece of it. So we're going to try and keep our mouths shut.
Are you already thinking about where you can set the next adventures?
Well, I got to get pregnant again.
Yes.
You've got to wait for that.
Then series 3 is a go.
Rose has
All
2
relies on
pregnancies
you.
on screen to date
Both
in
my
Vigil.
children are on screen.
Yeah. which is lovely. I mean, I think we never take anything for granted in terms of our actors and their size. They're all, I mean, these actors are incredible, and they're offered so many jobs, and they can. I think it's a useful thought to think. Well, we have to like have a shot at earning their time, their pick, and that is a reasonably high bar. So we if we think about doing that, it has to feel like there is something urgent to be said on both the sort of character level and in terms of a domain that we may enter to kind of unpack those questions. But I will say the world doesn't seem short on turbulence or question marks at the moment.
Airplanes can be very turbulent. Yeah. So when you, I'm really interested to find out, when you're discussing what you mentioned, the DNA of the series, but when you're thinking about an audience as well and the rides that which you want them to go on, I mean, what did you, when you were pitching, I guess, what was your pitch when you were trying to sell it to get the commission? What were you trying to offer an audience?
Can you remember?
In season 1.
To bring it back
Season 1 or this season?
Well, I guess I'll have to say season 1 because that's what I assume you pitched on. But then in terms of the bigger picture, it's more than just a thriller. I'm trying to work out how you saw it and what your vision was for it.
I think like season 1, as Jake said, George from World Scotland had said, look, that this is right here in Scotland. This is a really interesting piece of the geopolitical puzzle that doesn't get talked about much, and we should look at something there. But where we went next was thinking in terms of character, and this is going to sound odd, but we thought in terms of Amy, in terms of a submarine as well. The submarines, they are chopped into pieces. There's the engine bit here, there's the control bit here, there's the torpedo bit here, and we started thinking about like who is someone who is trying to live that way with a sort of a rigid segmentation of their life, and then secondarily the kind of the mythic thing of being taken down in the belly of a whale and being sort of spat out at the other end of it, and how kind of transformative those journeys are, and that was the sort of beginning of thinking about that, and we wanted that kind of harmony between sort of character and domain, and that is probably something that we've tried to continue with here. So these guys were sort of talking about earlier, looking at those points where the things that you're loyal to are deeply tested, especially when you have individuals who are committed to not just the job or the institution they serve, but the deeper principle behind it, the idea of justice or fairness, but who suddenly find themselves, for personal reasons, having the purity of those commitments tested and trying to juggle those loyalties. So I think if that's where we began, then across seasons, those are the threads that we've continued with.
And I think in this season, they're very exposed. We're in big landscapes with things in the sky that they're afraid of. It's that you've got, so people are much more exposed as characters here. I think there's a line in, I will give away one thing that Eliza says to Amy, and she says, it's different from being on a submarine. Here you're in plain sight, and always everybody's watching what you do. The regime's watching. You can cause a diplomatic incident in a second. So that level of exposure in terms of frailty, vulnerability, sort of infects the whole season, if you like. And so that's what's great, is that it leads you to themes. The domain leads you to themes. I think that's what you're saying.
I want to expose you all to the audience in a second, but I must ask you, because I've started to notice co-producer credits coming up against your CV. Are you moving more in that direction?
Yes, not with this.
No, I know.
No. But yeah, well, we just me and my husband are here tonight. This is our date night, weirdly. We're all on our date night. We are going somewhere afterwards, though.
Don't invite them all.
Yes, yeah. All at dinner. so we set up our production company and we made Maryland, and we've just made our first documentary, and then we've just got 2 commissions for next year that will go into production next year. So I love it. I'm hoping to eventually make projects that I'm not in, and then I can have a cup of tea and kind of, chill. Not that you
Do what
chill,
they do.
not that, yeah, but as in, like, it would be good to not do everything. But I'm very excited about our projects for next year. Yeah, I think we don't take the foot off the gas is the big thing, because, everything can be a moment, and we tell stories of people, but it's like, well, then we need to keep those stories up, and we need the people behind the cameras to be telling the stories, and we need the writers to be giving their experiences. So I think it's from when I started 25 years ago, I think that we've come such a long way, and also there's so much content needed, and there's so many places that we can put our stories, which is fabulous. And TV's changed, and the way we all watch TV's changed. So I think the key is to not settle, and to keep finding the stories, and to keep pushing for those people to come forward and not feel like they can't, is the big thing.
Do any of the other women have a response to that? How do you
Only
feel?
that was exactly how I feel as well.
That's why you're married.
That's why we're married.
We have the same principles. That's the thing, as Kirsten.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just to keep the foot on the gas.
Yeah, the
Brilliant.
momentum. Yeah.
Oh, so many.
Yeah.
I had a lovely time.
I like
not
Morocco
at
for
work,
the
which is
shopping
very
and the
hard
food.
work. But yeah, it was great. Yeah, we were in Casablanca and Rabat. Yeah, beautiful country, amazing culture, and beautiful food. And yeah, it was incredible. It wasn't agonizingly hot as well. It was sort of manageable. Well,
one or 2
the
days.
airbase wasn't.
Yeah.
Was it? Yeah, beating down, but. Yeah, it was wonderful.
Yeah, it was fabulous. Obviously, the tea table that I was describing was very good. It was brilliant. Yeah, we had a great crew. My driver, Marjan, tried to teach me French every day, and that I didn't do very well. It was really good. It was, and also to get out of the world, and actually a lot of the work is done for you because you're in another world, you're in another headspace, and the heat and the people. So that was really, really fascinating and brilliant. Me first? Yeah, I mean, I think you're drawn to the role, you're drawn to the character, you're drawn to what that person can give you and what you can give to the person. And so that's the first thing. And obviously through Gentleman Jack, I found a community that was so open and wonderful and receptive and willing to share their experiences with me. I was like, oh, wow, this can be another part of a job, that you can really connect on a whole other level. So I think by doing that particular job and then this one, I've been very welcomed as an ally, and I take it very seriously. And so that's part of why I like doing the work.
And I remember when we sat down, there was a few of us in the room just before we began filming series 2, and Suranne and I wanted to make sure that within the writer's room there was an LGBTQ writer within that room as well, and just so that we were able to get across the relationship that we have, that they are two people in love, and their sexuality in no way defines who they are, and they are kind and generous to one another and respectful, and that's a beautiful thing.
On both seasons of the show, we've been lucky to have really good experts, people who've done the roles and who've served, for instance, in sort of bases in the Middle East as part of RAF joint ventures. So yeah, we take that seriously. I mean, sometimes we get the kind of pushback of, oh, you've got the buttons wrong, but we actually have to get the buttons wrong for copyright reasons, etc.
But yeah, I just to say that we actually, if you really look at the insignias, it says British Air Force rather than Royal Air Force. Because we are a drama, we fictionalise intentionally, and some people sometimes think that's a mistake, but actually we've done that so that the audience can have some point of difference from a documentary. But beyond that, we try and do as much research and talk to as many people as possible, and sometimes they won't be able to tell us things, but we can ask if we're right or not, and they might not say that we're wrong. I think
one of my favourite sort of, which I thought was incredibly fair-minded responses in season 1 was a sort of, I think it was a sort of a rear admiral was asked to comment on the veracity of it and said, well, all of the things that are in the show either have happened or could happen, but perhaps not in 1 week. And I think that's very fair-minded. And I hope we hit the same kind of level this time around.
Yeah.
It's allowed me to see just how utterly terrifying and powerful they are, for sure. It's educated me on that front.
And I think when you know nothing about these worlds, so I don't actually do much research, which is good, because my character, infiltrates into the world. So as you're working on it and you're in a fictional world, of course you've got questions about things, but you're finding out the whole time. Very powerful. Andy would show us videos of the real drones, which was just like mind-blowing that it was happening at the same time. So yeah, terrifying.
Well, I looked for them on Amazon and I couldn't find them. I gave me a great idea for Christmas presents.
Do you have to have a license now for them?
Yeah.
I can't remember.
I don't know. I mean, I was, looking on the dark web as well, but I still couldn't find them. It was interesting because when we were filming it, there was this article in I think it was the Times, I'm not sure, but they're all about exactly what we were filming. And, I'm not sure if Tom knew about all this, but it was exactly what we were testing, all these weapons in the story. And it was basically explaining exactly how powerful these drones or RPAS weapons had become, and the capabilities of these drones and what they could do and how they could really change the way of battle in the future. And lo and behold, it's exactly what transpires in the story. And so sort of art was imitating life or life was imitating art, I don't know. But yeah, it's pretty terrifying, especially, when you think about remote wars and how they've been used in Afghanistan and Iraq, and I don't want to get into the politics of it, so I won't. But it's pretty terrifying, yeah, how powerful these weapons have become. And I'm sure they'll, like AI in the future, everything will develop and become even more terrifying.
You will never be replaced by robots, don't worry.
Oh,
Okay,
We're running out.
already
I think we have been. I think me getting pregnant helped with the development of our relationship. It kind of put a fast track on it.
Yes.
We moved in.
Yeah.
We moved in. But I think what was really lovely, particularly in series 2, is that we see this dynamic happening between the two of us, which is you are trying to rein me in and I'm trying to prove to you that I'm still capable despite being this heavily pregnant, and I'm still able to kind of fend for myself, as it were. And yeah, it turns into a kind of like a humorous tussle, but then it does get serious at times. Yeah. And we do have to check one another on that throughout the series, and it allowed us to become serious and then fall back into being kind of cute and cuddly together and then be serious. And I think certainly for Kirsten that there was a maturity that developed through her, not just becoming pregnant, but also in recognizing that now that she has committed to this relationship, to this new family, to this growing family, that, yeah, she can't be so willy-nilly about life.
I mean, yeah, being a woman who is kind of constantly wants to prove herself and feels like a responsibility of many people when we're out filming in this huge crews that are doing, you know, lots for us. I think Amy and I share that. I have a child. I share that. I'm constantly trying to balance my life and my career. Share that. I've had issues with anxiety, which Amy has had. So there's a lot of things that I can relate to that I think, you know, that's the beauty of finding the characters that you go, that's the one when you read it. And then getting to know Rose and us having a great friendship and then developing things and me knowing a lot of those things that I've just said about you as well, with the family and, you know, and the responsibility, we get to explore it together. So yeah, there's so much to relate to. Yeah, I think that's the beauty of the job.
Thank you, guys. Now we have to wrap up. I'm going to leave the final question to Dougray and to Amala. What do you want audiences to take away from this? What do you think is the gift that's been handed to them with this?
Well, I mean, I think it is, you know, a truly exciting show. It has a lot of like deep moral questions about geopolitics buried in just a riveting show to watch. And, you know, as people have said, you know, it's got two incredibly brilliantly written roles for women played by two extraordinary actresses. And can I just say that for a very long time, if you were pregnant, you just get fired. So it's really fantastic to have a pregnant actress, you know, played so brilliantly in such an important role. And yeah, I feel incredibly proud to be part of it.
Amazing.
And also, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, no, go ahead.
No. I was just going to say on that note, it was something that I did actually want to flag up, that I felt that World Productions were fantastic at accommodating my pregnancy and making sure that I was wrapped on time, that my pickups weren't too early, that I got wrapped by the time that I was 37 weeks. And I highly appreciated that. And that was fantastic, Jake.
Very good. Very easy to be that good for such good people.